So we were really excited, Emily, Chloe and I, to be asked to share our thoughts on this provocation. So how can we support learners to give honest feedback on their experiences? And I just wanted to share a little bit from some of the research projects that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in, working with young people in community learning settings, community justice and specialist youth groups. And I'm hoping that there might be some ideas here that you can, as my good friend Andy says, pinch and personalise and use in whichever way feels right for you and your learners. So thanks, Claire, if you could skip us on. So the first thing to say is that it's an art rather than a science trying to get honest feedback from learners, or certainly how I feel about it. There's no exact formula for eliciting effective and honest feedback. However, we can I can just hear someone talking in the background. If we could mute it, that would be great. Thank you very much. So there's no exact formula, but we can build on our everyday teaching and learning practices to help us gain honest feedback. We can be clear with our learners about what we're doing. We can explain why we're doing it, and we can talk together about what we hope to achieve through our research. And we can provide a variety of opportunities and methods for feedback in exactly the same way that we would do in our everyday teaching and learning. We differentiate and we look for different ways for learners to engage and participate. And most importantly, perhaps with research, is that we can listen carefully and respond to the feedback that learners share with us. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with and act immediately upon every suggestion that's given, but it's really important that we respond and we show learners that their feedback is valued and important to us. So, as I said, there's a few ways that I'm just going to share very quickly with you before Chloe and Emily give some real practical examples, but a few ways that you might like to support learners to get involved and help them contribute to research that you might like to use in your project teams. Thanks, Claire. Okay, so number one, absolutely key, is you need to establish a climate of trust and respect. If we want honesty in feedback, we need to make sure that we take the time to create conditions where learners feel as though there's respect in the room and that what they share is trusted. So it's really, really important that we create a safe place for this to happen. One of the ways that we can do that is by creating a group agreement together. So just as many of you will already do in your sessions with learners when you get a new group, having a group agreement, talking together about what feels appropriate and okay in the research project, what's expected, it really helps people know where they're at. And just as Claire mentioned in her talk, in Macclesfield College, that learners then become really excited. They know that they're involved in a project, they know all about it, and they're actually then asking about it too. So having those clear expectations is really, really good. Again, creating learner-centered, inclusive approaches to research. So value different contributions and levels of engagement. Some people will want to get really involved in the research, other people less so, and that's okay. Try and have an openness to listening to and respecting diverse voices, perspectives, and opinions. One of the beautiful things about research is it creates a space to engage in conversation and to share different opinions. And finally, a willingness to change direction and act upon feedback if it's clear that things aren't working well for them. If we think back to what we were learning this morning about the purpose of action research being about improving practice, if what we're trying really isn't making a difference, really isn't working, and our learners are feeding this back to them through their words, through their actions, then we need to make changes, and that's okay. It doesn't mean our research has failed. It means that we're being open and we're listening to the feedback, we're being receptive to that. So one of the things that can really help us to do that and to gain honest feedback is to try and move beyond the idea of surveys and star ratings. So surveys and star ratings can give us some stats and maybe an initial insight into things that are happening, but there are other ways to really sort of get under the skin of what's going on in your learning settings. And I think there are two questions that we need to consider when we're thinking about how to obtain feedback. Firstly, what do you need to find out from learners in order to improve and develop your practice? What do you actually need to find out? And secondly, how will you provide space and opportunity for learners to share their insights with you? Can you embed that into your everyday teaching and learning practices? So instead of becoming an add-on, it becomes something that's in the fabric of what you're doing already. Second thing is to really provide thinking time and let feedback grow. And I really learnt this through a project that I was doing with I was working with young people. We were exploring ideas around identity and lived experiences, in particular young people on the autistic spectrum, so neurodiverse young people. And we were thinking about all the different aspects of their everyday lives and how we can improve services and improve our teaching and learning spaces for them. And so we provided different ways for people to feed back, and we provided time to feedback over a space of time as well. So it wasn't just a case of, okay, I want feedback now, we've got 20 minutes to do it. This was something that took place over a number of sessions and was able to grow over time. And also I think it's really important to say that not everyone's going to want to feedback perhaps in the way that you want them to feedback. So as a group, we decided we were going to make a big load of cards with jigsaw puzzle pieces that you can see in the first two pictures here, where people could add bits under the different headings that we'd talked about. But then there were other young people, like the person in the third picture, who decided that they didn't want to feedback in that way. They wanted to do something different to talk about their experiences. So they used coloured pipe cleaners around their fingers and used that to talk about different aspects of their life and their experience. So providing the thinking time is really important. Next is the scaffold, your feedback opportunities. So a really good piece of advice that was given to me was try not to start an evaluation or a feedback activity on a blank page. And again, this was a project we were doing with young people in our local youth offending service, and we were talking about storytelling. And instead of just asking someone to share their feedback, if you can scaffold it around a few key questions or ideas, it can be really helpful. So in this instance, we had lots of little story cards. You can see on there, it says things like pets, trip away, going to hospital, your friends. And the young people could just choose which cards they wanted to engage with. They could take them and they could share bits. But in exactly the same mode, they were then able to ask me to choose something and share something. So it was give and take. It wasn't just feedback always coming one way. And in these ways, we can play to learners' strengths. So if they prefer movement, if they prefer storytelling or drawing or writing, it doesn't always have to be static, and it doesn't always have to be talking. And as I said, sometimes if it's appropriate, it's quite nice to share a bit of yourself as well, and that supports learners to open up. And can you offer a choice? So like with the young person who used the pipe cleaners around his fingers, for him, that was more important to him and a better way for him to share his feedback than it was to join in a group activity, and that was okay. The next thing is to always unpack conversations, and so really great advice from young people at who created this wonderful policy in Manchester for the Manchester Youth Justice Services. They asked practitioners to always ask why. So always ask why. And I've taken that with me into the research work that I've been part of to try and unpack conversations. And you can see there that someone made a statement, being with someone who understands. We could have left it at that and said, oh, it's really important for young people that they're with someone who understands. But actually, by unpacking that and working out what that actually means, it gave so much richer insight into that young person's experiences, and then into how we could support them and move things forwards for them. And so, yeah, so we went from being with someone to understands to concepts of love, and these are all things you don't need to ask for, you shouldn't need to ask for, to understanding. And then if we can support learners to actively participate, that's really, really great. So having different ways of offering feedback. So can you do it in discussion? Can you do a quiet reflection? Can you do a small group task or a one-to-one group? Are there different methods that you could use? So you might want to use something like exit tickets or an interactive poll. Can you provide space for learners to share their thoughts anonymously or talk their ideas through with a friend? If you can take the focus off the individual, sometimes that helps, and sometimes that's really important, depending on what we're asking for feedback on. So for example, can you share a case study and ask why the learner might have said this or felt a certain way? And if we can help make those feedback activities really meaningful and relevant by being very clear about what we're doing and why, and also by being driven by learner interests. So finding the things that are engaging for them. And then finally, have a look at the Action Research Guide. It's got loads of simple examples that you can try out with learners. And many of them have come from previous OTLA projects. So it's a really great starting point for lots of activities. And then finally, building in the feedback into the fabric of your everyday work. And as I said before, responding to it's really important. So why is this important? Because what you're doing is you're showing learners that they feel valued, and you're showing them that their opinions matter. So it's important to make that space and time and not just do it as a rushed end of session activity. The picture here is some access to higher education learners feeding back in ways that felt right for them. So there's one learner there using a Padlet board, there's someone else accessing the activity via their phone. Some people are working together, some people are working on their own, and that was embedded into the lesson. It wasn't just done at the end. And of course, it helps you become a better teacher, because then you have the luxury of many diverse brains, all of that creativity of a whole group of people rather than just you. And finally, I think it's really important to say, let's see the bigger picture as well and move beyond our own research projects on OTLA. And there's some lovely quotes here from teachers who've been involved with the projects. So here, one of our project leaders from last year said, seeking the support, assistance and engagement in the projects from learners naturally gave rise to very fruitful and rich lessons and powerful feedback. Learners reported that they thoroughly enjoyed being part of a high-profile project and began to take on leadership roles in their groups to support the experiments conducting in their classrooms. This boosted their confidence, self-belief and encouraged a warm rapport. And then I wanted to include this because I just thought it was lovely and shows the power of being open to feedback. So a learner said to me, don't take this the wrong way, but the reading you suggested, I just couldn't get on with it. Maybe people who are used to reading reports would get it in that format, but it baffled me. But then I saw another reading about it that another learner had put on, and that one was really good. So I feel like I've got my head around the topic now. And so just to recap before I pass on to lovely Emily and Chloe, helping to encourage honest feedback. Establish a climate of trust and respect. Move beyond surveys and star ratings. Provide thinking time and let feedback grow. Scaffold feedback opportunities so learners aren't left with a blank page. Unpack conversations and always ask why. Support active participation with the tools and approaches that you use. Build feedback into the fabric of your everyday work with learners and respond to it too. And then finally, remember the bigger picture and think beyond your research project and how that feedback and that honesty and the climate that you create for that honesty is going to really support you to improve your practice moving forwards. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And I'm going to hand over now to Chloe and Emily, who'll put this into practice.
Just before you do, Vicky, and Emily and Chloe, before you come on, what were those clay models for? Because I was looking at them thinking, oh my goodness, how did you use those?
So we used these, this was part of the project where we were talking, or we were looking at lived experiences. So we were working in a specialist youth group for young people who are neurodiverse, particularly young people with autism, who the idea for some of them of sitting and talking in a group or feeding back in a group would be very frightening and not something that they felt comfortable to do. But a lot of these young people were incredibly creative and could tell their stories through model making, drawing, building scenes, Minecraft. So yeah, that creativity, and they had ideas about how to share feedback that I would never have come up with. So yeah.
Emily and Chloe, it's over to you. And would you like me to spotlight you both and show the slides, or would you like to push your own slides?
I'm happy for you to. Have you got the slides there?
Yeah, all ready to go. They're all there.
Okay. Yeah, maybe share away.
Okay.
That was really great, Vicky. I enjoyed that. Lots of nice visual techniques in that too. Do you want me to start, Chloe?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so so I am a graphic facilitator and an ESOL lecturer. And I got into graphic facilitation a few years ago when I just saw how powerful it was. And in this action research project, since I've been a mentor, I've noticed even more how I can incorporate it into not only into my language teaching classroom, but also into action research. In this particular, so I'm going to, Chloe and I are going to show you some visual templates that you can use with within your sessions in a variety of different ways. This is one. So it's really simple. You just draw a picture of somebody and a thought bubble, and you can get students to add their ideas in post-it notes. Having this kind of visual just kind of inspires them a little bit more rather than just having a blank whiteboard or a blank flip chart. And you can, if you're online, you can do it on Jamboard with the post-it notes there. During this session, we are going to use the annotation tools in Zoom. Are you familiar with the annotation tools? If you are not familiar with the annotation tools, if you go to the green bit that says you are viewing Claire Collins' screen, go down to view options and then go to annotate. So this bit here. So yeah, this should say Claire Collins' screen, and then go to annotate. And then text, you can write. This one is for drawing, and this one is some stamps. So just, if you can just make some marks on this page to go back. Great.
Oh, look at that.
Excellent. You've got it. Much faster than my ESOL students at picking that up. Great. Okay, so this particular visual template I created for the ESOL cluster group meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. It's basically, some of you might recognize it as being the first section of the reflective task. So you have to, so think about, so this person here is looking back.
Can I butt in, Emily, and just
Yeah.
ask Claire to clear screen?
Yeah,
Just
I can't
for a
seem to
minute.
clear it. I don't have the right to clear it.
Yes, hang on a mo. Let me just give, I think if I make you co-host, watch this back room, hold on. Emily, I'm going to make you co-host as well.
Okay, thanks.
Guide me as if I've never cleared an annotation on a screen before.
Okay, so go to the, have you got the annotation tools in front of you?
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's gone. Good.
It's
Okay. Okay. And let's see. Can I get my annotation tools? Just going to draw. Clear. Okay, good. I think I've got control now. Okay, so this particular tool is, this person is you. You are looking back on your journey so far. This is September. And in the reflective toolkit, there were 5 questions. One was, what changes have you made to your learning, teaching and assessment? One was, how did you involve your learners? One was, what ethical considerations did you consider? And what research did you connect with, either internally, externally, and then how did you put that into practice? And then what evidence have you collected? So drawing a little roadmap like this is a really good way of reflecting back, but is also a good way of planning for the future. So those of you in the ESOL cluster might also have planned your action research project with a similar template to this. Now, visual templates are really common for graphic facilitation. And I'm just going to hand over to Chloe, who can do the next slide with her visual tool.
Thank you very, very much, Emily. And I will say that Emily has been really important in actually just kind of like pushing me to do this, because this is, I work a lot with digital, and I've actually, especially in the past year, I've just been getting more and more like in my head and just wanting to be tactile and have a pen and a piece of paper and draw. But I've had this whole, but I can't draw because, well, I can't draw. That whole like, I can't
You can draw, everybody can draw.
But exactly. So Emily's been massive in kind of like, you know, helping my confidence in that. I did her, I'm trying not to plug your course, Emily, but it helped me. It just kind of like pushed me a lot to focus and do a few, make a few things. And this is one of the things that I made. And I know Kathy mentioned bullet journals earlier on in the day. And I like using a bullet journal because, well, it kind of keeps my lines straight, but please don't judge on the fact that they're not totally straight, but it just, it helps me a little bit. So mine are they're all a little bit dotty. And I've been doing a little bit of action research myself this year as with a few of the groups that I'm mentoring in using these kind of things. So, and I will say as well that as with the things that we're showing you, yes, they can be used with practitioners, they can be used yourself, but also with learners. So really what the things that we show with you, have a think at how they can be used in lots of different ways. And heavily inspired, I think, by participatory approaches with ESOL. So those ESOL colleagues that are in the room might be thinking, oh yeah, we may recognise a few of these things. I'm just going to pop a link as well into chat. Oh, I can't click. I've got my annotations up. There we go. And that's the Reflect toolkit. So that's a little Easter egg. It's not Easter, a little present, a little Christmas present there for you in chat. So go and have a little look at that. But right now, what's this snakes and ladders about? Well, I want you to go onto your annotation tools. Not right. I want you to find that little stamp button, and I want you to just, you know, has anyone asked you this morning, how are you doing? How are you? I want you to just pop a little stamp on there to represent how you're feeling today. How are you feeling? And you might want to change the stamp. There's lots of different kind of stamps. We've got hearts, we've got ticks. And it also might be about where you put that on this. Oh, we've got a question mark as well. We've got a few folks at the top of the snake, a few folks at different levels on the ladder. Yeah, we've got folks all over, haven't we? Fantastic. Except for that little square at the bottom on the right-hand corner. There's no one in there. Fantastic, great stuff. So I found doing this, it allows folks to have a metaphor to go with. to really run with. And I wouldn't just do this and then be like, right, that's it, we're done now. I do maybe a round to really explore and unpack the ideas, why you decided that you were at the top of the snake, or why you're in the middle of the snake, why you were at any point. You'll notice there's no numbers on this. On a usual snakes and ladders, there are numbers, and that's because I wanted this piece to be subjective to you. And there's been really great thoughts that have been unpacked afterwards, after this, kind of using this activity. And one is that really stuck out to me, which was about the snake, and seeing that they put themselves at the top of the snake. And I asked, like, is that because you think there's this like impending going down, you know, so some challenges that are coming up? And they said, no, it's because actually I've climbed up the snake and it was really difficult, it was really challenging, but we got to the top. And so using that metaphor really helped to kind of like unpack and explain those ideas. So it started a good conversation. And I will say that this was also, as a starter, How Are You was very much inspired by a blog that Catherine Lindsay, a colleague, wrote for PD North, and I'll pop it into chat in a moment as I hand on over to Emily.
One of the things I would say about visual tools is that they have multi-use. So when I see this template, I see the same way that Chloe would do it, but I would also maybe consider doing it like 3 steps forward, 1 step back. So it could be, where are you on your progress? I'm halfway up the ladder because I did X, Y, and Z, but then I feel a little bit like I took a few steps back on the snake. So lots of different ways that you can use it. Just have a think. Okay, if you go forward onto the next one, this is what we call in graphic facilitation a visual capture sheet. Basically feedback. How are you going to get this information from your students? This is quite an ESOL-y one, so it can be used. So the 0 in the middle is, so for example, you could do this at the beginning of class or the end of class with your students. How do you feel about your, hold on, I'm just going to annotate. How do you feel about your writing? How do you feel, sorry, about your reading? How do you feel about your writing? How do you feel about your speaking? Oh, I am not very confident would be here. I am very confident would be here. So if you just take your stamping tools and maybe choose a couple of pieces of the pie that are kind of relevant to you. So maybe, how do you feel about your digital skills? Are you not very confident, or are you super confident? And just make a mark here. There's not much, maybe, we maybe don't need to discuss how to, about writing and reading skills, but it's just to give you an idea. So you can do this with many different things, to ask lots of different questions about how people are feeling. And confidence could be distance traveled from 0 to 10 as well, or how much you agree with something. Various different, you could put different statements in here, how much you agree with it. Can be used in lots of different ways. Okay, so over to Chloe to her next tool.
I'm just stopping sharing, Chloe, because it's the quickest way I can find to clear the annotations, so forgive me.
That's fine. I've realised as co-host I can actually clear the screen myself, I think. So, and I didn't realise that before. So it's all good. We'll try it this go. Thank you very much. Cool. Okay, so this is another one that I created, Roses and Thorns. And I'd like us to have another go with this, but this time instead of doing stamps, you're going to do text. So I'd like you to just have a little moment and think to yourselves, how have you found getting honest feedback from learners? I want you to think about that and write a few notes. What are your roses and thorns? And you'll notice I'm being a little bit vague there on what do I mean by a rose or thorn. And again, that's because that can be quite subjective. It doesn't necessarily mean a positive and a negative. It's what you think that means. Claire, are you able to move people's writing around?
Well, certainly.
It's strange not being able to move everything around, is it? Oh.
No, I don't think so. I could make you host, Chloe, if you think, or Emily, for a minute.
Yeah, so the one that's got the little cross, I think it's next to the mouse. There's like a kind of mouse with like 4 different arrows, kind of like a compass shape.
Okay.
And then you can use that to move all the different comments around,
Oh,
move them apart. Yeah.
Like
There
you
you go.
out.
cool.
Fantastic.
This means that, yeah, people can
Love it.
read it all.
And oh, I know this is going to be very intense because we've got 77 people in the room, so I'm not expecting to be able to read all of these out. But this is a little bit different because this is textual, and I know we're doing this online right now, using Zoom annotations, which I think was quite a big idea there, Emily, with 77 people in the room. But we're having a go at it. And but you can do this face to face. You could do it anonymously on printout slips. This could be on a whiteboard together. It could be, you know, get really involved. White Jamboard, as we said before, and the IRL replacement for Jamboard, I always think, is a good old flip chart, some post-its and some pens, you know. Yeah. So that is this one, and when we're thinking about evidence, for example, this really provides some tangible evidence. You could if you're doing this online, you could screenshot this, but bear in mind, obviously, this is anonymous as it is in this way, but there's lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Emily.
Great tool. Okay, so we clear. Okay, we're just going to bombard you with tools. So the next one, can we go on to the next slide, please, Claire?
Me. And I'm just acknowledging that Helen has got a hand raised, and I'm sure that we'll be able to return to Helen at the end of hearing you. So Helen, please don't think we're ignoring you. We know you're there.
Okay, so this one is a mountain and a hot air balloon, and like most visual templates, you can use it in various different ways. I created it for one of the action research projects, which is looking at trauma in the ESOL classroom and how to relax their students. So my mentee wanted something where she got a tool where she could ask students to reflect on what challenges they face and how to overcome them. So this is a kind of metaphorical mountain. So you could ask students to put their challenges here in the mountain, and then in the hot air balloon, ways to overcome the challenges. But I've also used this, last week I used it with a training session for OTLA with students speaking challenges and then ways to overcome them. You could just use the hot air balloon by itself, things that lift you up, things that weigh you down, things that worry you, things that you like, things that you don't like. It can be used in many, many different ways. What challenges did you have in the project so far? How do you think you're going to overcome them? Okay, and the next tool, I think back over to Chloe.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this one, some of you may recognize. Sorry, I was in chat, just having a chat about participatory approaches and all of that. I am really sorry that I just dropped that kind of like, here's a fantastic present for you to have a little look at. The reason why I dropped it in is because there's so much we can like nick, pinch and personalize from participatory approaches. But this, you know, we've not got time to go into that. So it's more of a, if you want a little rabbit hole, there you go. And a few more folks have popped some awesome stuff. I see Kathy's put a blog in there, and Hannah's popped some really good ideas in there too. So there's a little bit of a rabbit hole if you would like it, whether you're doing ESOL or not. This one in front of you right now, this is to do with Brookfield lenses. And when I was doing, I recently completed my ATS, and when I was doing that, I found it really useful I like Brookfield because I found it really useful to look through just different spectacles. But the thing is, my ideas and my thoughts when I'm writing, they're not structured. They're kind of all over the shop. And having something like this, where I could just write a few different ideas down, whether I did this, I could put this on a Jamboard and put some ideas on, or do this, or just pen to paper. That's how I did it, just pen to paper, and just wrote some ideas out and kept adding to it over time. And it just felt like more of a, well, it's more of a visual, but also more of it was better than a million Post-it notes, which is the situation that I had. A lot of Post-it notes, it kind of brought it all together. And it also doesn't matter about your drawing, by the way. It was just me and a pen and, a piece of paper. It doesn't matter, as long as it makes sense to you and it gets the idea across. Emily, what's that fantastic? There's a percentage, isn't there? Like, as long as it kind of is, what is it, 40%?
All right. For drawing or for?
yeah, there's like a, oh, okay, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure.
I know this, as long as it kind of like looks 60% like what it's supposed to,
okay.
then you're getting that impression across. And as you can see there, I did write literature, but it looked like, if you looked at it, it was so squidged together because I had that problem of getting it to the end of the page. So I easily just threw a text box over there and wrote reading in. So, it's super easy to do for my little mistake when it comes to the writing, but the drawing, I'm feeling a lot more confident, Emily. So thank you. A lot more confident with not minding, as long as the impression is getting across. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that is the thing. Graphic facilitation is not art, it's communication. So you're not trying to make something artistic and impressive. You're just trying to get your point across. And if you look on my blog, you'll find all sorts of things that you think, oh, why did she share that? But it's just there because it communicates the point. It's not necessarily there for artistic beauty. Okay, I think there's one more. What time do we have till? If we're going over, but
a little bit over, but maybe another minute or so.
All right, okay, I'll rattle through the feedback, Fairy. Okay, I didn't add her. Okay, so this is one way of checking students' moods. So if you can just take your annotation tools out, how do you feel today? Or how are you feeling right this second? Oh, good, lots of suns and cloudy suns. That's what I like to see. One rain cloud.
It's a good alternative to a like it. I mean, it is a like it, but it's not, is it? It's
yeah.
And
yeah,
you know what? You might put the end, because for the same reason that I explained about the snake before. You might put the lightning, but it doesn't mean it's a 0 out of 5, you see?
Yeah, the lightning could be super energetic. You can get them to add in their extra things as well. And maybe you could do it with traffic lights, red, white, and red, amber, and green. That's another alternative. Okay, and then last one.
I'm loving everyone's
another new slide. Okay, so so there's various different ways that you can draw people. So you can draw, which will make you look just a little bit like a little bit smarter than drawing stickmen. So the one on the far left is the David Sibbett Starman. So they're super happy with the happy, excited arms, confused head with one eyebrow raised and then one eyebrow lowered. Or are you all tied up in knots? Or are you feeling okay, but maybe you're a little bit stressed? Maybe you're feeling a little bit wound up, I suppose. Okay, so how are you feeling is different ways of, and when you copy emotions, one way you can do this is just by copying emojis. So this is just the annoyed emoji, you'll notice. Okay, so yeah, that's just lots of different visual ways of getting feedback. If you do, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I do have some spaces left on my online course in January. If you want to send me a little private message, I can chat to you about it.
Okay, more than
find me on social media.
Positively encouraged to say that, Emily. That's a really great opportunity.
Now, I know Helen had a question, and that was about, and I think, Emily, you will...
Oh, yeah, it was about so annotation tools on Zoom are limited, but if you wake up your screen and then there's a little pen, I find them really quite useful when you're teaching online to make sure that things are always interactive. Tasks are always interactive as well.
Does that answer your question, Helen? You don't have to unmute, or you can always message us.
In chat. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm definitely going to try that out. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Go on, Claire. You're emceeing.
That's it. There's so much food for thought there, and so many opportunities to be creative, because one of the joys of teaching is that we can express our creativity. And one of the joys of doing action research as a teacher is that we can be even more creative. And Vicky, Emily and Chloe, you have given us so many fantastic ideas for doing that. I really enjoyed that session, and I'm sure everybody else feels the same way. So once again,